Yo, what's up, YouTube? This is your boy Jay from Keeping It Real, your arbiter of gaming news and commentary, hitting you off with a studio production video where you know this is your channel, where all gamers' voices are heard. With your boy Jay, always dropping the word. Keeping them other gaming YouTubers like, what you heard? And where you always know, we always keep it all the way real. So what's going on, everybody? I just want to thank you all for checking out my studio production video today. And this one's going to be an interesting video, man, about the real reason Microsoft is not pushing 60 frames per second. So, of course, this is a very controversial thing. You have ones who are in my camp, which are the camp of folks who really believe that 60 frames should be pushed over resolution. I really feel that, okay, to me, resolution is a second to frame rate overall, just in general, period. Frame rate should always be first and resolution second. Now, that's my opinion. Not everyone agrees with me, but I would say if you're looking at it from a technical standpoint, as well as looking at it from a standpoint of just overall performance that you're going to get out of both visuals and also gameplay and also feel of the game and how realistic the game looks, 60 frames per second gives you that overall feel that immerse you into the game, makes the game more realistic, and in a lot of ways even enhances the graphical performance of a game just by the frame rate being higher. So in my opinion, 60 frames per second would be optimum and should be the first thing that any developer should want in their game, especially games like any shooters, especially. I wanted to more dig into the fact of it, that being the case, we can't assume that Microsoft doesn't know this. So it would kind of be one of those things where it's like, come on, man, they ain't stupid. They've been doing this a long time. They know that 60 frames per second is important. They obviously know computers. They obviously know software. So they're no strangers to understanding what 60 frames per second does for a game. So the question is, what would be the real reason of why they're not pushing for it instead of pushing for 4K? Now, I wanted to go ahead and dig into that. And the fact is, if you really think about it, think about what is the easiest and what is the most, you got to look at it more broadly of what is the most easiest, most effective way to set yourself apart from everything else. You think about that with Microsoft in this point where they are right now. What do you think would be the most easiest and most fastest way to set yourself apart from your competition? 4K. Think about it. If no one really right now is really putting down 4K in a way that on as many AAA titles is what Microsoft is doing with the Xbox X. And if you think about it, 4K is something that you don't have to run into the problem of parity. Right? Because if you really think about it right now, when it comes to 60 frames per second, you run into an issue where these are higher performing consoles, being the Xbox X and the Pro, where they could do 60, but they have to be still running with consoles that are that are the baseline console that is not going to be able to do 60 in a lot of ways, especially right now. If you look at the market right now, we got a lot of games that are still coming out 30. Destiny 2 being one of the earliest examples where you're thinking like, isn't that so much last year or the year before that? Shouldn't we be just doing 60? But you still got these games coming out at 30 frames a second. So the thing is that the base Xbox One still needs to be playing the same game as people on the Xbox X. And we know, if you really do your research, you'll find that the biggest disparity of frame rate is between the 30 and the 60 mark. Of course, as you go higher, that disparity goes a little less and less. But it's one of those things that it is a issue when it comes to multiplayer, when one person is playing at 30 frames per second and the other person is playing at 60 frames per second. Yeah, that 60 frames per second person does have an advantage, just point blank. So parity is still one of those things that's an issue when it comes to 60 frames per second. However, when it comes to 4K, that's not an issue. That's just, hey, if I got better visuals, I just got better visuals. And I'm having a more premium experience than you because I have an Xbox X and I have a 4K TV and I just got better visuals than you do. Or I have a better game a better version of that game played on my Xbox X where I can see more better visuals and be more immersed into the game and it be more realistic, and I can have better 4K textures and all that good stuff that comes along with graphical fidelity and graphics, right? So the thing about that is that's not as complicated, right? I mean, if you really think about it, what makes it more complicated is, okay, now we're pushing for 60 first, and now we got to worry about parity with our Xbox One. With our baseline Xbox One, we got to worry about parity with the baseline PS4, and whether if they're going to do it or not. That's just a big mess. And that's why I tell you why overall I would see Microsoft is not really pushing for it. They're really more or less pushing for the buzzword of 4K because that's the simplest and most easiest way to have a stark difference, a difference in contrast from their competitors. And that's the real reason of why they're doing it. Now, you might ask, like, well, what about when it comes to their first party titles? Yeah, you're gonna see that there is more of a push on 60 frames per second in their first party titles. However, you got to think about it. Look at what they're doing with Forza. Now, Forza is going to be 4K 60, right? But think about that. It's still going to be 60 frames per second on the baseline Xbox One. It's still 60 frames per second. So that tells you right there that if they're not going to be able to do 60 frames per second on the baseline Xbox One, they're going to be kind of hesitant to do 60 frames per second on the X because they don't want to run into a parity or problem when it comes to multiplayer. And that tells you that's even a concern of theirs, even on their first party titles. Now, of course, over time, I think this will change. I think there is going to be more of a bigger push towards 60 frames per second over time on games. But I think that is going to be coming gradually as the market itself more shifts to a 60 frame per second standard. But I think right now, it's still too big of a hang up on this 4K thing. And, now guys like me will be like, I don't give a damn if you do it checkerboarding or shit. If you just do it 1800p, just like the new Killzone, the Killing Floor 2, that's going to be at a true native 1800p for the Xbox X, which is great. I'm glad that that's what they're pushing for. Now, I don't think it's been confirmed what exactly the frame rate is going to be, but it would be damn nice if they could just lock the frame rate at a 60 on the Xbox X in the base Xbox One. And even on the Xbox One, if they're going to bring it down to 900p or whatever, or less than that, I wouldn't care. Just at least keep it at 60, because that would be a great standard to have, and that's gonna give even if you're a little under 900p, let's just say 800 or 720 or whatever, you're still gonna have a good premium experience, because you're gonna have a smooth, buttery smooth gameplay, and that 60 frames per second really enhances your visuals as well, because it immerses you. It's more immersive when it comes to the game moving in a more realistic way, so you feel more immersed into the game, and of course everything is a lot more faster and more responsive. So in my opinion, I think it's one of those things it's more of a industry thing, where us as gamers, we really have to push these developers and hardware makers that hey man, we want to see 60 frames per second as a standard, and we even if that compromises the resolution just a little bit, that's fine. We're good with that. I just think gamers need to just educate themselves on understanding the differences and knowing that resolution ain't everything. I want to see better graphics. Resolution ain't everything, man. And whatever you can do with making it appear more realistic and immerse me into the game more, with better fidelity, you could do that and not necessarily it be native 4K, especially if it's going to compromise the frame rate. So yeah, man, that's pretty much my word on that. You know, like I said, that's the real reason, man. In the industry, they see that 60 frames per second is going to be too much of a complicated thing, especially dealing with parity. And it's just much more easier just to say it's going to be 4K because that sets them apart from the rest of their competitors. So, and it's much more of an easy attainable thing, especially right now as the way the market is now. It's just much more of an easier thing for them to do other than pushing 60. So yeah, man, that's my word on that. I want you guys to go ahead and hit me in the comment box and tell me what you think, man. Until the next time, this is Jay. I'm always keeping it real, and I'm gone.